Okay, when you open Vissim, you're going to see a map of the world. And before you start anything, before you start making any intersections or going on any roads and making a simulation, we're going to have to set parameters. Actually, before we start anything, let's figure out how to save. That's always important. So we're going to go up to File and choose Save As. And we'll just call this simulation. I'll save it to the desktop and put it there. Okay, that was easy. Okay, next we're gonna set our parameters. Basically, what that is, it's like a set of rules that that you tell the cars and the intersection to go by. So before you put cars down, you have to tell it what kind of cars you want, and then what kind of speeds you want. So things like that. Okay, first thing we're going to go to is the simulation pull-down menu. Open up parameters. First thing you're going to see is the period settings. So it's already set at 3600 seconds. That means when you run the simulation, you're going to be simulating an hour of traffic. Doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have to watch the simulation for an hour, since things will be sped up. We'll go ahead and keep it at 3600. We'll keep it at an hour. Okay, next is going to be the start time. Right now it's 0, which means 12 a.m. If we change it, we're telling simulation to simulate how traffic would look at the time we specify. So if we change it to 12, I'll change it to 12. So that means I'm going to make a simulation that that simulates 12 p.m. in whatever area I like to do it at. So we'll keep it at 12 right there. It's going to be the lunch hour. Okay, next it's going to be the start date. And this start time and the start date, they don't really have anything to do with, they're not going to affect your simulation at all. It's not going to change how the cars work or anything. That's going to be all the stuff you're changing. This just kind of gives like a little tagline on your simulation. So if you want to make the date, we'll just make the date today that I'm recording it. So we'll make it April 20th, 2017. And that's just going to tell me that I'm making a simulation to simulate the 12 p.m. lunch hour on April 20th. Okay, next is the resolution. Right now it's set at 10 timestamps per simulation second. That means that in the world of simulation, as 1 second passes by, the animation is broken down into 10 frames. So you can look at it as the more frames you break it down into, the smoother your simulation will look. But this also means that if you change it up to a number like 60, you're going to have a whole lot of frames in your simulation, and then it'll look smooth, but it might make your simulation run slow, depending on your computer really. And your file size might also be bigger. So 10 is a good number, we'll just leave it there. And then random seed, this is basically just gives randomness to your simulation. So any number that you pick is going to generate like a different random set of numbers, and it's kind of like the it kind of makes the cars come at a different rate. It's going to make just things work differently. So if we change it to 42 or 41 from 42, then it's going to be totally different than what 42 would give me. I'll just leave it at 42. It's what it has it set at default. So number of runs and random seed increments is set at 1. This just means your simulation will run one time and finish, and the random seed will change by a value of 1 for each time the simulation runs again. So this number will change to 43, then to 44, then to 45. If you keep running it again and again, say if you set this number to 5, it'll change 5 times, and this random seed will change 5 times as well by 1. And we'll just leave it there. We'll just run it one time and do, 1 random seed at a time. Okay, next is simulation speed. This just means how fast the little cars will be moving across the screen. So right now it's set at 10 simulation seconds per second real time. So as I watch the screen, the cars are going to be moving by really fast, because for every second that I am sitting here in my chair watching the screen, there's 10 seconds in the simulation that go by. So the people inside are moving 10 times faster than us. Okay, in this little checkbox that says maximum, either I can check that or I can check the 10 seconds thing. If I put it at maximum, the computer is just going to change it to 12 or to 15 or whatever it wants, but that number will stay at a reasonable number so the computer can run smoothly. So it's a good idea, because you might not be able to run at 10 simulation seconds per second. It might change you down to 5 or 3 or whatever. So put it at maximum, it'll figure it out for you. Retrospective synchronization is something that tells Vissim to make up for lost time by speeding up the simulation or slowing it down, just in case the program delays it all. So say like a program is opening on a computer in the background and it slows down your simulation or something, it's just going to kind of synchronize it up. It won't, just in case it has any delay, it'll kind of fix it for you and put you back on real time. It's not super important. I'm just going to leave it how it is. Okay, break at is set at 0. If you want to see the simulation run in real time, meaning one step at a time, we'll set this number to something different. So say we're starting at the lunch hour and we're going to run for a full hour, so it's going to go from 12 to 1. If I set the simulation seconds break at, we'll say 1800, that means at 1800 seconds, which is 30 minutes, then at the 30-minute mark, it's going to slow down to 1 simulation second per second. So if I am curious about what happens at 12:30 specifically, then I'll set that at 1800, 30 minutes, and I'll see the simulation run at 1 second per second, so I can see things really slowed down if I want to evaluate something. Okay, the number of cores is talking about how many number of cores you want to use from your computer. So the more cores you use, the better the computer will process the information and the commands that it's given. So right now it's set at 1 core. My computer has 4 cores that I can use. If I'm not running anything else at the same time, then I could probably run 4 cores, but you can kind of just play around and do what you want. Using all cores is going to be using all your computer wants to use for that simulation, so I'll leave it there at all cores. Okay, for the start date, we're actually going to set it at 4:10. The program doesn't really like it when you set it close to today's date, so 4:10 works for me. I'm not really sure why. I guess maybe you can only do simulations from days before. Anyways, we're going to set it at 4:10. Click OK. Okay, now we're going to set our speed distributions. It's going to define how fast certain vehicles move. Okay, so really quick, I'm in America, so I'm going to set my units to Imperial. So, because right now it's on metric, so for those of you who want to set it to Imperial like me, I'm going to go to base data, then network settings, go into units, and change these to miles per hour. Or you can just click on all Imperial, and I'll do it quick rather than doing all these one at a time, or all metric if it's set at Imperial for you already. So that's a quick way to do it. Okay, now go ahead and click on base data up at the top again, and we're going to go to distributions and desired speed. Okay, this is the first time you're going to see a table pop up at the bottom. I'll go ahead and make it bigger so you can see it. Okay, and you're going to see this list here, and it's going to show you, these are all defaults, and we're going to start adding to it. So you see there's about 43 of them right now. We'll just leave them there, but we're going to add to it and make our own speed distribution. So we're going to right click in an open area, and it's going to show add. We're going to click on add, and you're going to come up with this. So basically what we're making is a speed that we can assign to a certain vehicle. So say a certain vehicle on a certain road desires to travel at 35 miles per hour because that's what most likely what the speed limit is. Okay, we know he's not going to travel exactly at 35 miles per hour all the time because nobody does that in real life. So we're going to make this distribution change a little bit so that he can choose to go a little bit slower or faster depending on how he's feeling. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to make this one for 35 miles per hour. So go ahead and put 35 miles per hour. And so now we're going to set, so basically with 35 miles per hour, I'm going to say, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to say that cars on this 35 mile per hour area are going to travel, let's see, around 30 miles per hour at the lower and then 40 miles per hour at the upper. So no less than 30 miles per hour and no more than 40. Okay, those are our upper and lower limits. Okay, and then there's this line, and we're going to right click here and make a point, here make a point. You can make points anywhere you want. If you don't want the points there anymore, and you're going to drag them off. So what these points are kind of handles where you can move this curve around. So we'll move it up here. I'll show you what this means. I'll show you what this means in a minute. And move this one down here. So now what this means is that you're going to have 10% of people in this speed limit, 35 miles per hour. 10% of them are going to choose to go somewhere within this range, from 30 miles per hour to 31.7. And then up here, since this one is at 90%, so this upper 10% is going to be for people who want to drive from 35.4 miles per hour up to 40 miles per hour. I'll move that over just a little bit more, just like that. Okay, and that's pretty realistic. So most people are going to drive within this miles per hour. 10% are over here, and 10% are over here. We'll click OK. Okay, we'll go ahead and make one more just for practice, and because we can use these later on in the simulation. So we'll make one for 45 miles per hour. Okay, and you can call this whatever you want. You can call it speed limit or whatever. You can call it my speed, whatever you want. It's just a name, so we'll call it 45 miles per hour. That's what I like to do. And then we're going to set our bounds, so people aren't going to travel faster than 50, we'll say, and then people aren't going to travel slower than 40. We'll keep it there. And then again, we have the curve, and if we don't want a point, we can drag it off. Again, if you want to make another point, you can right click on the line. Right click on the line. I like to do 2. You can do however many you want. Again, you can drag them off with your left click. Okay, then left click and drag, and you can move these around. I like to do the 10% thing, so we'll move it up to 90%. Move this one down to 10%. So 10% of the drivers using this speed distribution are going to drive from 40 miles per hour to let's try it again. Okay, so 10% of the drivers with this speed distribution are going to travel from 10%. Oh, right there. Okay, so 10% are going to drive from 40 miles per hour to 42.1. And then we'll right click again, make another point. And then the upper 10% of drivers are going to drive from 48 miles per hour to 50. Okay, we'll click OK. Now we have these 2 that we made right here, and we can use those later on. Okay, now we're going to define our vehicle types now that we know our speeds. Okay, so we're going to open base data again. We're going to select vehicle types, and you'll see another list pop up. And you can go back to the speed distributions list because it's hanging out right here. And there's our speeds we made. Over here is vehicle types we just opened. Okay, so this is the default list. It's already showing all the cars, all the vehicles that are going to be showing up on the road randomly. Pretty self-explanatory. It's got the name right here. Name doesn't mean anything, but the category means something. So you're going to have a car. It's going to be a car. I guess you can change its name to I don't know. You can change it to drivers or something, but we'll leave it at car because it doesn't really matter. And then so you have cars, you have heavy gross vehicles, buses, trams, pedestrians, whatever. And these are like just to customize them. You can make them different colors. You can use different models for these. You can make them look different, and that's kind of what that means. So all these are open right now. You can add more if you want. Right clicking and pushing add does that, and then you can go on this menu and you can kind of add another one. So now we know our vehicles, we can decide how many of these vehicles we want to show up on the road, and that's called a vehicle composition. So we can start by clicking on lists again, and we're going to come to private transport and vehicle compositions. Okay, so I'm going to give you these 2 lists. Right now it shows a default right here. I'm just going to get rid of the default so I can show you how we can make this. Okay, we're going to right click and push add. That's going to give us a certain group of vehicles that we're going to have. Right now it shows up with car. So we can right click and add over here, and next thing it's going to come up with is heavy gross vehicles. You do it again, it'll give you buses. You do it again, it'll give you trams. I don't want to use trams in my simulation, so I'll just delete that one. But in this grouping we have cars, heavy gross vehicles, and buses. So all you do, so this will represent a street, and then this will represent the vehicles that are on that street. And then next thing we're going to look at is relative flow, and you can think of this as like a percentage. They don't necessarily all have to add up to 100. You can give them whatever value you want, but that's kind of the probability of them showing up on the street. I like to think of it as a percentage. So for cars, I'm going to change it to 80 because mostly there's cars on the road. For heavy gross vehicles, we'll make it 8, and this is going to be like your big trucks and stuff. And then for buses, we'll make it the remaining 12. Okay, so 80% of the vehicles are going to be cars, 8% are going to be heavy gross vehicles, and 12% are going to be buses. And I'm just going to stop right there. Now if you want to make a different road or something that you're going to assign, then you can make a new group, and then in this group you can do that same thing again. And if you don't want buses on there, you don't have to put buses on there. Kind of simple like that. I'm going to get rid of this one. Okay, the next is speed distribution. So under this little tab right here, we have 5 kilometers per hour as default, but we'll go ahead and assign it some of the stuff that we made before. So we made this one 35 miles per hour. We'll give it that one. We'll give this guy same thing, and you can give these different speed distributions if you want to be very specific. So you're considering that heavy gross vehicles, they might travel slower with different speed distribution. So you can go back to the section where we talked about making speed distributions, and you can make one specifically for the trucks. But we'll just give them all the same one for now. This is just a basic kind of thing. Okay, now that we set our parameters, we can go ahead and zoom in on the area that we're going to set the simulation at. So up here you see a list of tools. We're going to start with the magnifying glass. It's going to be the zoom in, and you're going to left click and drag to zoom into the area you want to be in. If you're using a mouse, I'm using a mouse, you can it's kind of easy. You can just use the scrolling wheel. That makes it easier for me. If you guys don't, then you can use the magnifying glass, and you can zoom in wherever you want. And if you want to drag the map around a little bit, then you can use this little hand. It's called the pan mode. You can select that and you can drag it around. Again, if you're using a mouse, you can use the scrolling wheel, and you can click and hold down, and you can drag as well. So we can zoom in as far as we want and find the area you want to work on.